Hello, my name is Zealand, and I've decided to make this video about mentoring today purely out of my own free will. Mentoring, yeah, like if they're in the same mentoring group, it will help. And I was not coerced in any way. How does mentoring work? To make this video today, right now. Where can I find your video for mentoring? Maybe. Suffice it to say, this video is one that people have been hoping I would make for a long time. Then I made the training guide and kind of barely touched on mentoring. And I'm serious, I needed some time to research this to make sure that everything I tell you is 100% correct. And if you want to come bother me into making other videos, then by all means, hop in my Twitch channel that is linked down below. You can also DM me on Twitter, which is linked down below. You can DM me on Instagram, which is linked down below. You get the idea. You can DM me on Discord, which is linked down below. It's all very useful. But this mentoring video is hopefully going to be very useful for you because it's something that was introduced to the game just a couple of years ago and something that has changed the game pretty significantly for people like me that really trying to get into the nuts and bolts of getting the most out of every single player that you possibly can. I also have no idea when I became a guy that wore, like, graphic t-shirts again, but we're really devolving in quarantine. The structure of our video today is going to be as follows. We will have an introduction into what mentoring is and where it is, a brief historical explanation of what mentoring is replacing. We will then go over what mentoring affects. We will then go over how mentoring affects it. And somewhere in the middle, we will talk about what significance means and why it's significant. And to do this, we will be taking my Dortmund save that I've been streaming, and we will be creating the mentoring groups for the upcoming season. So without further ado, I shall retreat to my corner. Accio Corner! Sa! Okay, mentoring is something you're going to find in the training section. So you click on training and go to mentoring, and you're faced with a blank screen. This blank screen can be filled up with groups of players, and these groups of players will train together and they will influence each other. And this is going to affect a lot of different things in the game once you learn how to set it up. But that's essentially what mentoring is. You're assigning a group of players to work together during training and spend some time off the pitch as well. Sorry, that was a weird face. This is replacing a system that's called tutoring, and it was removed in... I have to go to Google for this. When did tutoring get replaced in Football Manager? So it turns out tutoring was replaced in Football Manager 2019 with mentoring. If you're coming back to the game in this quarantine and that sort of thing, tutoring was where you paired up a veteran player with a younger player, and that younger player was the direct recipient of all the veteran players' knowledge. It wasn't an overly complicated system. And mentoring is definitely a more complicated system than the tutoring one that was left behind, but the tutoring system, once you figured out how it worked, made the game a whole lot easier because it would almost guarantee the imparting of all of these wonderful personality traits on whichever fickle, unambitious, unmotivated, unprofessional, spineless, you name bad personality youngster was over here, and they could be turned into a brilliant youngster in no time flat. Once you figured out how it worked, kind of ruined the game. What the new mentoring system creates is a world where you are allowed to change young players over time through mentoring, but you are not allowed to wholesale change them with direct influence. There are a lot more factors that go into it, which obviously is going to help the game replicate real life more than in the past. So let's just go back down to the game show. Oh! No. Just kidding. I love Bussinette, and hopefully we're going to be able to make a video soon. I reached out to him. If you watch his videos too, let him know that I want to make a video with him. Back to our mentoring thing. What I'm going to do to show you what I'm talking about is click on Ask Assistant to assign, and this is where my assistant manager is essentially going to set up my mentoring groups for me. Now, they generally do an okay job when you ask them to set this up, but in certain instances, I've noticed that the assistant coach is blissfully unaware of certain things that I am going to attempt to make you aware of in this video. So it's not something you can trust, but it's certainly something you can use as a guideline to get you started. I mean, this is a lot of people that you would have to click on and individually put in these different groups, and it's something that your assistant coach can do the bulk legwork for, and then you just do the refining. So let's do the refining. And Football Manager 20 actually makes this super easy, and imagine they won't remove any of these features going on into the future, and by showing you the different pieces that affect what is going to help you in mentoring. They show you your club hierarchy, they show you your social group, they show you the personality, and most importantly, they quantify all of that information into the influence that a player has in the mentoring group. And as you might have guessed, the more influence that a player has, the more they are going to impart on the other people in that mentoring group. Let's take mentoring group 2, for example, where we have Axel Witsel, who is a team leader in the hierarchy. He's part of the core social group. He is resilient, and his estimated influence on the group is, as such, significant. Compared to Marco Cana, Matteo Morey, and Leonardo Balerdi, they are all not important in the hierarchy at all. You have influential and highly influential between the two, where they're not even there. They're in different social groups, the non-core social group. Their personalities are, well, different. And as such, their influence is light. Now, personality, I should specify, does not influence their influence. The age, social group, and hierarchy do influence their influence. I really hope that's the last time I have to say that. In the mentoring group that I just showed you, Axel Witsel is going to have an incredibly powerful influence over those few guys. Now, it's a small mentoring group. It's only 3 other people outside Axel Witsel. So his determination, right? His hidden attributes, his personality attributes. I'm talking professionalism. I made a whole video about this. You can check it out. It's, what corner does it go in, Reese? Reese will get me sorted out. He always does. But I made a video about personality attributes if you don't know what I'm talking about, but they're very important, like ambition, professionalism, even loyalty and ability to handle pressure. There are 7 of them. Then you have your other hidden attributes like versatility, consistency, injury proneness, which I don't believe to be affected by this, although we have seen some instances in the community of people's consistency being improved by things like mentoring, just as it could be improved by tutoring in the past in some instances. I was not able to find in my research exact evidence that consistency can be improved, but I know the personality attributes can be changed. That's widely accepted knowledge amongst the brain trust of Football Manager. So if you do see consistency change, or maybe even injury proneness change, please let me know. I would love to have some more confirmed cases. The point being is that all of those things are going to be affected. Personality attributes, your determination level is going to be affected, and it's going to be headed towards the person that has significant influence. So you want the person that has significant influence to have a personality that you like more and to have higher determination. And if they're playing a similar enough position, player traits also might be imparted, like knocks the ball past opponent, tries killer through balls, those things. I made a video about that too. I'm sure Reese will take care of me again. It's going to be up there somewhere. Check it out if you don't know what I'm talking about, because those traits will be imparted, and if they make a ton of sense on one guy, you put the other guy in the mentoring group, might not make a ton of sense on the other guy, and not necessarily a reason to keep him from being a model citizen or something, the best personality there is. But it's definitely something to think about, that player trait might be imparted. As for the players' positions, you kind of want them to be as similar as they can be, but generally my rule of thumb is if they are in the same training unit, goalkeeper, offense, defense, then they're probably going to be able to mentor each other without any deleterious effects. Now, obviously, if you're training an attacking central midfielder with a striker and mentoring them together, then you're going to end up in a situation where the traits aren't necessarily applicable. And I've read that they won't actually pass at all if their position isn't similar enough. So you don't have to worry about plays killer through balls accidentally ending up on your brilliant young striker because they're being mentored by somebody who's not a striker. But the position, as long as they kind of come up recommended when you're clicking on the add button in the top right of the screen, then it's not something you really need to worry about. The groups themselves, you want to try and keep as small as possible. Now, I have done some experiments. When I was in Belarus, and I'm still in Belarus, I'll just only stream it when I'm playing in Europe. I ended up in a situation where I had one guy with a personality that I liked. His name's Emil Halfredson, plays for the Icelandic national team. He's kind of old at this point. I signed him and had him tutor 15 players. Now, it had some effect and helped out those 15 players, but if I had to mentor 3 or 4, he would have a much greater effect on those 3 or 4. Think about it in a real-life situation. If you are mentoring 15 people, you're not going to be able to mentor them as effectively as Axel Witsel mentoring 3, or maybe mentoring 2. So don't just throw people in there for the heck of it if you don't think they're going to gain something from it. This is a bit of an aside, but it's something I want you to keep in mind. While you're negotiating contracts, if you give your talented 19-year-old an important player contract, even if you know that that guy is going to be an important player for you, that is going to increase his role in the hierarchy. It's going to perhaps give him a better spot in the social groups as well. And even though his age is going to be low, that could increase his influence in these mentoring groups. This is obviously going to have a bad effect if you are trying to mentor him. If it's possible, you want to try and get somebody that needs mentoring on the lowest role contract you have. And then you will give yourself maybe a year or two where they still have light influence and can be heavily influenced by the other people that you put in their group. The leaders like Axel Witsel or Mats Hummels is another one on my team. I want them imparting their knowledge on others. But back to the groups for another situation that you might end up in. If you sort this group, and I really don't know why this is so difficult for me to scroll or what's happening. Let's go down again, shall we? There are 2 people in this group which I have sorted upside down. Mats Hummels and Felix Paslock, who are both considered of average influence. This is massively annoying. Now, if you've started to pick things up throughout this video, you can probably tell me why. I want Mats Hummels imparting his knowledge on this group, but Felix Paslock has the same amount of influence, not necessarily exactly the same, but has relatively the same amount of influence over the group because he's a little older, because he's influential, because he's in the core social group. He has almost the same amount of influence as Mats Hummels. So in order to make this group better, I don't really care if Felix Paslock's personality changes. I do care about Wage and Gonzalo Montiel. So I'm going to remove him so that Mats Hummels is the only person imparting his knowledge in a very hardcore way to Musa Wage and Gonzalo Montiel, both of whom I would recommend as signings on your save. In particular, Wage. The dude's really good. Thank you again to Frank for the recommendation. The key to successfully mentoring players, from all that I've experienced playing the game and all that I've researched to make this video, is to create specific focus groups isolating your best senior players with good determination, good personality traits, the players that you want to have more of in the sense of the way they carry themselves on the field. You want to isolate them in a group with a couple of young kids, and you want that to be really just one significant player. You can have a significant and a couple of averages, and obviously you'll still be able to impart that kind of influence. But really, you want to get a bunch of young players who are still on light. Like Wage's a first-team player for me, but he's still on light. You want to grab those guys and throw them into the mentoring with the people that you want to recreate mentally. And if you find a model citizen, run like hell to keep him. I just have an unhealthy attachment to model citizens. Just because I'm all about your ease of use, when you're on this screen and you're like, I don't know what his determination is, just hover over this whole thing on the left, and you can see Mats Hummels' determination is roughly equivalent to the 2 guys he's going to be mentoring. It's worth giving up 1 determination to try and turn these people into model citizens. That's a trade we're making. I'm just really surprised that Mats Hummels is not a team leader and Mario Götze is. That's why you really shouldn't trust your brain. Just go ahead and look in the dynamics section at hierarchies and social groups. I mean, it tells you on the other screen, but sometimes you just, Götze? Really? And Hummels is down here? Götze like never plays. I don't know. But before I go and wrap up this whole mentoring thing, I do want to touch on something that's been kicked around a lot, and that is forming bonds on the field through mentoring. Now, I have not tested this myself, but there are a lot of different, better ways to use mentoring than trying to create a bond on the field. Now, if you have a couple of guys that have the same amount of influence, they are not helping anybody else become better players as young players through the mentoring style that I just showed you. You can put them all in the same mentoring group. and there is evidence that putting them all in the same mentoring group will help create those green lines that you see when you're playing the game or when you're watching me play the game on Twitch that indicate that the players have bonded well together. There is evidence for that, and it can be useful. Maybe you want to use a mentoring group or two if these people aren't being used to mentor other players. Boom, go for it. But it is not something that I would structure my entire mentoring around, because I think your mentoring can be used to greater effect in this type of situation. Now, if you're at a worse club, you might want to use your mentoring for that sort of thing more, to create connections between players, because you're not going to, especially at the beginning of the game, when everybody has balanced personality in low leagues, because SI doesn't want to be mean to anybody, which I understand. Someone said, you probably get sued for libel if you went and just started calling people fickle all over the place, right? So everybody's balanced, their personalities are just pretty the same, and you're not going to be able to make any huge changes. Maybe you're raising somebody's determination, but that's it. You could create more mentoring groups to help create those green bars, but that's just dealer's choice. You have to read your team and read that situation and figure out what's going to be best for you and what's going to allow you to succeed now and into the future. Generally, when thinking about whether something's going to work in mentoring and whether it's not, you should just, will that work in real life? It works with the position part of it, and it works with almost everything else. If somebody's a team leader, they're going to be more influential. You understand. And when you're getting mentored, you're going to adapt personality traits of the person mentoring you. They're going to teach you certain skills. They're going to show you how hard you're supposed to work with the determination attribute, all those things. So, in summation, the mentoring screen is very well put together, even for a football manager screen. It shows you and gives you access to every piece of information you need to make your decision. The hierarchy, social group, and age will affect the influence of the player. You rise up the hierarchy by playing a lot, being good, and being important, and holding sway because of your personality attributes, which means personality can factor into it a little bit, but it really won't. Once your influence is determined, then you are able to impart your determination, your hidden attributes, and your player traits onto the other players. The smaller the group, the more intense the focus. You can have multiple influential players in the same group, and that will allow you, obviously, if you had 2 significant people, you could add another 3 lights in here just if you wanted to, but I would prefer to just put 3 lights on one significant, 3 lights on another significant. You have options, but keep in mind you can water somebody down. And then boom, you're shooting out model citizens all over the dang place, and the world can't even handle you anymore. Well, it looks like we're all set. I can live with this mentoring, and hopefully I'll beat Bayern. Again. I hope this helped. I know a lot of people were overawed by the mentoring system, but it is, despite being more complicated than tutoring, actually fairly simple once I'm able to boil it down through days of research to an answer like this video. If you enjoyed it, obviously would really appreciate you liking the video. That's the sort of stuff that just keeps me alive during this quarantine. And you can subscribe to the channel, and when you do that, you can hit a bell, you get a notification every time a video goes live. I can speak here. You get a notification every time a video goes live here, so you never miss a thing. With FMBase, with Zealand, with Reese, with the people, with the hammers, the homies. Somebody stop me. I'm leaving. Mentoring will affect those green lines. Yes. Mentoring, yeah, like if they're in the same mentoring group, it will help. But usually you're going to want to use your mentoring groups and you're gonna have to wait for the video. I'm gonna accidentally start a riot with that sort of thing.